have Mara Tekach, Dr. Mara Tekach with us today. Mara is the Senior Public Diplomacy Advisor at the U.S. Department of State and is the former Deputy Assistant Secretary, DAS, for Professional and Cultural Exchanges at the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, ECA. She oversaw a broad range of professional, cultural, youth, and sports exchange programs designed to increase understanding between Americans and people around the world in support of U.S. foreign policy initiatives. Dr. Tekach is a career diplomat who entered the Foreign Service in 1989. Most recently, she served as Minister Counselor for Public Affairs at the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City. She previously served as Deputy Director of Communications at the United States Mission to the United Nations at New York, Press Attaché in Buenos Aires, Mission to the United Nations in New York. Oh, I already said that, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. Minister Counselor for Public Affairs at Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and Financial Officer in Moscow, Russia, and as a Junior Officer in Mauritania and Niger. Her domestic assignments include Senior Desk Officer for Italy, Senior Watch Officer in the State Department's Operations Center, and Economic Officer with both the United States Trade Representative and the Office of Monetary Affairs of the State Department's Economic Bureau. Prior to joining the Foreign Service, she spent 2 years as a Peace Corps volunteer, and her languages are Spanish, Russian, French, and Haitian Creole. And here's Dr. Mara Tekach.
Thank you, Susan. It's really a pleasure to be here with you all today. I did want to mention that part of the reason I'm here today, you could attribute to a BNC. Before immigrating to the United States, my mother learned English in the finest place she could go to in Buenos Aires, and that was Icana. Yay! So with that very heartfelt opening, I'm very happy to be here to talk about ECA and leveraging exchanges. ECA isn't always clearly understood to everyone, so I'll give you some basics about it. It's the title of the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. What you need to know is that it's the brain center for exchange programs. With roughly $600 million per annum, it's able to generate 55,000 exchanges a year around the world. It's the home of the Fulbright program, the International Visitors Program, and even summer work travel, if you've heard of that, which in itself brings 275,000 people to the United States each year. It is also a source of alumni programming. ECA's programming is copious. It is the trendsetter, at once the classicist and the innovator of exchange programs. It is a national leader and the gold standard for all others working on exchange programs. I'm here to share what I learned in ECA over the last 2 years. Until a few weeks ago, I was the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Professional and Cultural Exchanges there. And from that vantage point, I can give you a big picture from which to construct successful strategies for BNCs that intend to work with the exchange programs to stay connected and to stay relevant. What better approach than to work with the most treasured of people-to-people diplomacy, exchanges? How many of you here today have seen that exchanges can be valuable for your BNC's growth and development, already using them for its purpose? Okay, so there's room to do a lot more. A lot more. Great. To you, it's no secret that exchanges are highly leverageable, am I right? You already see it. So let's all get on board and start doing this. And to approach the opportunities offered by leveraging exchange programs, planning is vital. And to plan, I would suggest focusing on 3 areas. Some of this was introduced already by Deputy Assistant Secretary Gallegos. Policy, programs, and people. And let's start with the policy. We opened our deliberations by outlining policy areas for the Bureau. And ECA's exchange programs are indeed richly imbued with these themes. In fact, we in the Foreign Service are on the hook to make sure that's the case. In many ways, exchange programs are the best way to achieve policy goals and social good. And who says so? Well, President Obama himself says it. In one of his many interactions with exchange participants, the president offered these words of wisdom. As important as they are, security alliances and trade agreements are not enough. Governments and even businesses don't have all the solutions. We've got to have a relationship that's from the bottom up, not just from the top down, not just among the most wealthy or powerful, but also from ordinary people who are trying to give opportunity to everybody. And so that people-to-people relationship is what's really important. Connecting with each other, understanding each other can have a profound impact. And so it's a tenet of diplomacy. The president said it himself. Foreign policy efforts cannot succeed if only governments engage, debate, and negotiate. And that's why it's important that BNCs continue to engage, to connect, and to build community. Moreover, the White House embraces exchange programs as a vital part of 21st century diplomacy in achieving all its objectives. The National Security Council incorporates exchanges into its national security strategy and issues guidance annually on how to conduct exchange programs. And today, ECA and exchange programs are as tailored to policy issues as they've ever been. Examples include citizen security, keeping youth constructively engaged, away from gangs and violent extremism, social engagement and community building, empowering women and girls, building diversity, protecting free expression and press, combating climate change, and promoting entrepreneurship, to name a few. At the country level, you see these same objectives in embassies and consulates, tailored to your country's environment and the unique characteristics of your bilateral relationship. So policy awareness gives valuable context, and context that you really want to be aware of. Now, the programs. So there are so very many exchange programs. It's quite a challenge just to know what they all are. You could have a separate conference just to talk about exchange programs, or even a subset of exchange programs. And that often is the case. The wonderful thing about them is that they feed directly into the 5 pillars of American spaces. And this is evidence even from a quick glimpse that we'll take now at the offerings. Earlier, we heard about the Young Leaders of the Americas initiative, or YLI. It's among the most innovative programs of our era. We will see pretty soon what it can achieve. And for the first time in the region, there will be a group of 250 people coming to the United States all at once to participate in an exchange together. And it will be focused on one area, which is entrepreneurship. From across the hemisphere, whether they are engaged in business or social entrepreneurship, they will come to the United States to attend summits in Dallas and Washington and engage in city entrepreneurship hubs that have been created just for this program on entrepreneurship. YLI's predecessor programs, YALI and YSEALI for Africa and the ASEAN group respectively, can sustain ongoing connections with participants long term. That is the ultimate goal of YLI as well, and that's what makes it ripe for BNC engagement. So the more you know about YLI, the more you'll be able to connect with it. Public affairs sections will welcome your ideas, your resources for how to do this, and to continue to leverage the resources we have. Indeed, Indeed, Das Gallegos talked about how good we are at leveraging in this region, and that is very much the case. We take a dollar and make it go much further, and here's another opportunity to do so. So, going on to talk about more exchange activity and programs, 100,000 Strong in the Americas has succeeded in expanding the education agenda, an unprecedented educational and exchange initiative for this region. It's ambitious, but it responds to an organic desire throughout the region to create more opportunities for study abroad and to build increasing ties between educational institutions across borders. And naturally, in this room, we very much applaud the development. Also, high-level education dialogues have taken root in each of your countries, and I'm sure you as BNCs are trying to become part of that process as well. So, indeed, you are part and parcel of what could be called the 100,000 Strong initiative or even movement that is happening in the region. We urge you to keep doing so, to keep fueling the growing programs, and to look for those educational leaders who see tomorrow's promise that are so important to building this initiative. And then again, as Das Gallegos mentioned, so much is happening with English, the bread and butter of BNCs, from access programs, but also ECA offers new and evolving programs such as digital learning through massive open online courses, MOOCs, and BNCs can be very important to securing the in-person component to MOOC learning that we now know as educators is proven that you need that in-person component to make MOOC learning really achieve results. So BNCs are vital to that. We have also, of course, Education USA, where students are clamoring for advice on how they can study in the United States. A decade ago, BNCs had little or no access to an advising infrastructure. Today, Education USA is proliferating. We are much better resourced in this area. I'll mention Fulbright programs. It's a classic program that has been around for many, many years. These programs go on. BNCs can always be part of the Fulbright. And then there are other programs, study of the U.S. institutes and the newer Community College Initiative, which looks at affordability in education, a very important niche given the price range of education in the United States. In my own area in ECA, I worked on professional and cultural exchanges. The selection there is wonderful. International visitors is well known to all. Maybe you didn't know we have a new area for international visitors on demand. It tailors programs in the short term to very specific objectives, and there's been a lot of exploration and innovation in that part of international visitors. We have also had the first fully virtual exchange program, no travel, virtual completely, with Iceland to help advance environmental goals there. Couldn't you see a BNC having a virtual exchange program? And so innovations are all around. We also have two-way exchanges, an opportunity, a model for exchange where not only do people go to the United States, but there is a follow-on to the program that is there to support action planning and getting results out of your exchange. Can very much tailor to very specific goals. It's very useful, and BNCs can always be a venue and platform for the outbound parts of our exchanges. So other programs, even more programs that I oversaw in ECA include community solutions to build civil society through 4-month internships with U.S. NGOs. There's also professional fellows, which brings hundreds to the U.S. each year for a wide spectrum of shorter internships. ECA has forged outstanding mentoring programs. You've heard perhaps of Fortune's Most Powerful Women for Businesswomen and ESPNW, where we work on global sports mentoring for women and girls. We send out envoys, sports envoys, who some of them are the sports greats. They're all of them wonderful leadership trainers, and they go out to countries around the world to work with communities. BNCs can be wonderful performance venues, as you know, and ECA programs abound in performance. Cultural programming is back on the rise, very slowly, but it's back on the rise. We have American Music Abroad and Dance Motion, which sends U.S. artists around the world. We have a program called Center Stage, which brings cultural icons from other countries to the United States. The International Writing Program, University of Iowa. I hope all of you have heard of it. It is ideal for BNC work. It builds free expression in extremely creative ways, and they also have their own MOOCs that are available for BNC access. And film diplomacy, also in a growth mode. BNCs are terrific venues for film festivals, screenings, and discussions. American Film Showcase with the University of Southern California is right now riding a growing documentary trend. And that is just such an opportunity for creative development of programming. So we work on a range of prescriptive policy issues through all these programs. Environmental protection, it can be media reform, it can be digital networking, you name it, there's been a program. And so BNCs can really make a difference with this rich array of opportunities of exchange programs that you can try to plug into. And what's really at the heart also of BNCs is the people. And you know this, you are about people. The point of exchange programs are people-to-people connections, and the point of BNCs are people-to-people connections. So we'll start with diversity. Diversity is a top goal, and BNCs are such a fine venue to help enhance diversity in programming. We look to you, please, to bring us those diverse applicants, the underserved, but also at the same time, the rising talent and the local leaders. Public affairs sections continuously work to find such people. You can be their partners in doing this. It'd be very helpful to do so. And finally, alumni. I understand that Sophia Sturgeon from ECA's Alumni Affairs Office will be talking with you about the incredible resource alumni of ECA programs are. And some of you already work with them. The alumni coordinators throughout the region who work in embassies and consulates greatly appreciate the support of BNCs. Do work closely with them. Go find them, bring them to the BNCs, do work with them, cultivate them, and build that alumni base. There are also local and regional alumni organizations that have grown independently. Some are associated with the Global Ties Network, which is, I don't know if you've heard of Global Ties. Daniel Bremer-Wertig will be here later this week. He can fill you in on Global Ties. What a powerful organization it is. It's all over the country. It is the organization that receives exchange visitors. And it has traditionally been connected to the International Visitors Program, but it is diversifying very rapidly into the full range of exchange programs. Indeed, it's a good role model for what BNCs can be doing. And so Daniel will talk about that, but he also has very good information on the Alumni Association, at least one, maybe more, that are cropping up around the region. Some of them quite influential, and some of them regional. So I recommend that you start connecting with them and supporting them as well. So to get to the bottom line, There is a great deal to draw from, and staying knowledgeable about the key elements of policy, programs, and people. It provides the basis for what you want to do in terms of your interaction with the public affairs section. A strong and continuous dialogue, brainstorming, and engagement. As you work to make the BNC the go-to place for U.S. exchange participants, the way it was the go-to place for my own mother when she needed to learn English, I urge you to become even more active in planning closely with the past sections. Exchange participants, past, present, and future, are very much the lifeblood of what we do in public diplomacy and very much what happens at BNCs. So like Obama said, we can't achieve our goals without people-to-people diplomacy. And so for that, I thank you very much for your commitment, and thank you for your attention today.
On behalf of ABLA, this is a diploma and another plate.